In this video, we're going to talk about calculating the volume of various 3D shapes. So first of all, a little background on volume. What is volume? It is simply the amount of three-dimensional space. For example, how much can you fit into a box? How much concrete is it going to take to pour a sidewalk? How many cups of flour to make cookies? And even how much air is in a room is a measurement of volume. So the key to volume problems is to practice using the formulas. There are a lot of shapes. We have examples here: spheres, cones, cubes. This shape here is called a rectangular prism. You might think of it as a box, a pyramid, and a cylinder. And they each have their own unique formula. So it takes practice with each one of these in order to start to get comfortable calculating the volume of those kind of shapes. I'm going to go through 4 of these in this video. So in this case, we have a rectangular prism, a box shape. The formula for that is fortunately the simplest of the volume formulas. It's length times width times height. That's it. You are going to be given most likely 3 numbers in your problem, and you're going to multiply those 3 numbers together, and that will give you the answer. So this is one of the easiest volume problems for you to solve. So here's an example. What is the volume of this shape down below? We look for our 3 numbers. They might not be labeled as length, width, and height, but that doesn't matter. We know that we need 3 dimensions. So we have 3 and 2 and 2, and we're just going to multiply those together. 3 times 2 times 2 equals 12, and there is our answer. So everything else from here is going to get a little bit more complicated. Example 2, a cylinder. So we can see that our cylinder has a radius of 2 and a height of 3. The formula for the volume of a cylinder is pi, which you can either use the pi in your calculator or 3.14. Either one should give you the right answer. Times the radius squared, and then times the height. So let's take a look at our answers in this case. What is the volume of the shape below? We are simply going to use pi. I would generally recommend you use that in your calculator. The radius is 2. Now here's where you need to be a little bit careful, because sometimes they will give you the diameter, and you're going to have to divide that by 2 before you use it. But in this case, we're given the radius, and then we are going to multiply by our height, which is 3. And just let your calculator do that work. And if you're using the TI-30XS calculator, this is going to give you an answer of initially 12 pi, which is a perfectly good answer. And sometimes the answers for questions like this will be in the form of pi. But if you want a decimal version of that, hit the toggle button, and you should get 37.7. And there is our answer, 37.7 right there. But keep in mind that sometimes the answers will be in terms of pi. Next shape, a sphere. Here we have a sphere, and it has a radius of 3. Same warning about spheres. Sometimes you might be given the diameter. For instance, for exactly the same sphere, they could have said that this dimension is 6, and it's the same thing, but we want to convert that 6 to a 3 so that we have the radius before we get started. So there's the formula for a sphere. 4/3 times pi times r cubed. What is the approximate volume of the shape shown below? We want to just carefully substitute in. Now, the nice thing about the formula for a sphere is that there is only one value. that we need to get from our shape. That's the only important value of a sphere, is the radius. So let's substitute it in. I'd use the fraction function for 4/3 in your calculator, and then multiply that by pi, again using the calculator pi value, and then times 3 to the 3rd power. Now this is where you have to use your other exponent. That's the hat key above the x squared key on the TI-30XS. And we let the calculator do the hard work here. And you should get the number 113. Now you'll notice in this case, we don't get an answer in terms of pi out of the calculator. And that's because it's not like a convenient number. So they will just jump right to the decimal answer. And that will sometimes be the case. So that is the volume of a sphere. Let's move on to one more shape. We have a cone. And here we can see that our cone has 2 dimensions on it. We have the height of the cone from the bottom to the peak, and we have a radius. I'm going to point out that sometimes you will also be given another dimension, and that would be this slant height here. That's necessary in order to calculate the surface area. But in this case, it's not dimensioned because we don't need it to find the volume. Let's take a look at our volume formula. 1/3 times pi times r squared times h. So you start to see that there's a similarity in these formulas. And this formula is dependent on our radius, r, and the height, h. So we do not need that slant height that I was talking about. What is the approximate volume? So with volume and with surface area formulas, the steps are the same. Identify the shape. We need to know that this is a cone so that we can get this formula. We need to know that we're after volume so that we grab the volume formula. And then we find our values and we substitute. So in this case, h is equal to 8 and our radius is equal to 6. Same warning about the radius and the diameter. If you're ever given the diameter in a problem like this, convert it to a radius right away. So let's set this up. It's going to be 1/3 times pi times our radius, which is 6. And we're going to square that. And then finally, we're going to multiply by 8. And the number that you should get for that, I strongly encourage you to be practicing these with me, is 301.6. Now, the only one that I've left off of this list is the pyramid. I encourage you to practice that on your own, but I tried to focus on the ones that you are most likely to see. So that's it for volume. Now it's time for some practice on your own.